for the sole purpose of hearing House Bill 1193. And so we're going to hear it today. We will not take any action on the bill today. We'll do a hearing today. We'll allow committee members to ask questions. And then I believe that the bill will next be heard or presented in the regular Appropriations Committee is the plan. So this is just an opportunity to allow folks to come testify. Do we have a sign-up sheet on this? Okay. I'll call for folks that may want to testify. But this bill was originally sponsored, Chairman Irwin, by you, and then you've got Representative Dudenick as well here with you today. So I don't know which one you want to kick it off, but thank you guys for bringing this bill and walk us through your bill.
Great. Thank you, Senators. Thank you for this opportunity. We are very excited to get before you and try to envision this state for me when after a few years of all of our third graders reading on grade level, and what type of state we would have and how this state would look different after 10 years of students being able to read on grade level, and the impact it could have on us, not only with the lives of the children, but the economic end of a group of citizens that could read, learn more, and reason better. But members, I bring before you the Georgia Early Literacy Act of 2026. That's HB 1193, as the chairman spoke. But, you know, fully before I start digging into this, 40-something page bill, let me state that reading is fundamental to learning. If you've been inside a classroom, if you see it, you realize very quickly in subjects that reading is fundamental to all subjects. A majority of our third graders in this state cannot read on grade level. Thus, getting them on grade level by third grade literally changes their lives in school. I've looked around the room today as I've been sitting in here, and I've watched many of us reading, whether it was your phone, whether it was a computer, whether it was the piece of paper in front of you. I want you to imagine for a minute if it was difficult for you to do, or if you could not read that paper, how difficult it'd be for you to do your job sitting here today if you cannot read. Now imagine a kid in fourth grade that's not reading on grade level, and a teacher's putting stuff before him and he's trying to do his job, and he's looking at that paper and he can't read. It'd be just as difficult as you not doing your job here, as school is our young people's job. I also want to state the fact, before we begin going through the bill, to let you know of the importance of this bill. Reading helps us dream big. Have you ever gotten into something, read it, and your mind starts really working through what you're reading, and you can almost visit the areas or the situation you're reading about? That's what we've got to get to for our students and put it in their hands, give them the tool of reading so that they can dream bigger and change this state. Let me talk then straight to this bill and kind of go through it with you, not section by section, but parts of it that I think that are the most important part here. You know, this bill is aimed at promoting and advancing comprehensive early literacy and reading education efforts that are aligned to the science reading throughout this state. The bill's major provisions are QBE funding for school-based literacy coaches in each public school with students in kindergarten through third grade, regional literacy coaches and leadership literacy coaches based in Georgia's 16 regional education service agencies, what we call RESAs. They will work side by side with school-based literacy coaches and school leaders throughout the state. It also has a section of comprehensive curriculum-based professional learning to support teachers and literacy coaches in applying the science of reading in instructional practices, and it will be available at no cost to K-3 teachers and literacy coaches. High-quality instructional material, what we call HQIM, is aligned to the science of reading is required for K-3 literacy and reading instruction. Although the compulsory school attendance age is not lowered from 6, families are encouraged to have their children start school by age 5. And in instances, students will attend kindergarten before advancing to first grade. New and enhanced rules for placement, promotion, and retention for students in kindergarten and first grade, and families will decide whether their children start in kindergarten or first grade. It establishes the Georgia Literacy Task Force within the Office of Student Achievement. This standing task force, under the leadership of the new Georgia Director of Literacy, will select high-quality instructional material, again, HQIM, comprehensive professional learning, and universal reading screeners. Very important part here, it requires school systems to adopt unified literacy plans, and it requires ongoing evaluation of our educator preparation programs, what we call EPPs at the colleges. I have stated, members, that this is the most meaningful education legislation that this General Assembly has taken up since the Hope Scholarship. I'm still going to stand by that fact. And I'm going to stand by where I started. Imagine this state, if every child could read on grade level, how that would change our schools and then ultimately change this state. So for generations to come, we can make a difference, much like we did in the Hope Scholarships. We can teach these children to read on grade level. We must run into this mission with the idea that we can do this and that every kid can learn to read. We can't leave any by the side. As we used to like to say in education, no child left behind. We can't do that in reading. If they're going to be successful in school and ultimately in life, can't leave them behind. We got to believe that they can read. That's a pretty, Mr. Chairman, a pretty high flying by a 40-something page bill before you, but what I would say very impactful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Dunick, do you want to add anything to that? Or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a walkthrough of budget items the same way. Happy to walk through those at your discretion.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll see what questions the committee has once y'all present.
I will spare the committee having to flip through the bill and find particular lines and pages, but I have those, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to reference those if you want to when we dig in, but I'll hit the high points. We've got a little over $31.2 million appropriated in QBE funds for our elementary school-based literacy coaches. There are going to be 1,313 total coaches, and we envision this $31+ million in the FY27 budget as very much a down payment on that full list of literacy coaches. If you all remember in previous session where Chairman Irwin and I, along with the House and you as our colleagues in the Senate, created those RESA-based literacy coaches as well, we're repurposing the $18.4 million that was previously appropriated and allowing them to be a part of the provisions of this bill as it relates to those coaches and how they participate in this larger bill as a whole. Remember, there are 118 RESA-based coaches. Under the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, we include $150,000 for professional learning and development for current teachers, literacy coaches, and administrators. This is for GOSA to evaluate current professional development programs. We also have $330,000 to provide GOSA support for the review and recommendations of that HQIM that Chairman Irwin mentioned for our students in pre-K through third grade. These funds would also be for a continuous review of those high-quality instructional materials to make sure that they're up to date and, most importantly, as Chairman Irwin stated, align with the science of reading. $96,000 for GOSA to review all the screeners offered and make recommendations for which screeners can be offered to districts. $250,000, Chairman Irwin mentioned that new Director of Literacy position. This director would oversee the state's literacy effort and would coordinate with state agencies to ensure that literacy metrics are being met. And finally, under GOSA, $5.5 million to establish an applied reading center to design professional development programming for teacher and literacy coaches.
You said that was 5?
5.5, yes, Mr.
5.5.
Chairman. This would further help with crafting standards for literacy coaches. And then finally, just north of $527,000 in the Professional Standards Commission to provide 4 additional program approval specialists to ensure that current professional standards align with the science of reading. Mr. Chairman, that's a summary of the total of $60.9 million that the House included in our version of the budget, and happy to walk through again any of those, help you find those across the bill as you would so desire.
I think I caught most of it. So the 31.2 that y'all put in for the coaches, how many coaches will that pay for?
So the way that we're looking at that, Mr. Chairman, is that we anticipate a number of these coaches are going to be hired from, if you will, within our existing classrooms, right? We're going to fund those coaches the same way that we fund any other position that's added to QBE, and that's a base level funding of approximately $54,000. In the amended budget, we would pick up their training and experience and any other benefits that go along with that to get a total number. And so I'm just explaining for the committee's purpose here. We don't know what that, if you've got 5 years experience in a bachelor's degree and he's got 10 years in a master's degree, very different salaries that would be in there. So again, as we look at this, that we're funding and making that down payment to get everybody started with those coaches as they would need.
So the 31 million is going towards the second piece that you're talking about, or is that actually going into the QBE formula?
It's that first piece,
Okay.
yes, Mr. Chairman.
And then you'll roll the 18 million in additional.
Which was already there.
Yeah.
Just for those RESA-based coaches, just as a
So-
reminder.
Yeah, so if I do the 1313 times the 54 that you mentioned, that's 70 million. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, y'all envision this kind of rolling out over time
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
as you find additional, basically as you're able to fill these 1,300 positions.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
How long do you think that will take?
I think if we had the answer to that question, we could have answered your March Magnus pick and which
Fair
senator
enough.
was going to be here.
I
earlier.
will say we want to be, Mr. Chairman, as aggressive as possible at getting those, because we've got a defined role as well as defined qualifications. So we need to go out with the idea, let's get as many as we can, as quickly as we can, because there's such a benefit in the classroom. And that's also proven by other school systems right now that are trying to employ their own to do the similar work.
If y'all find more than what the 31 million can fund, we would just amend that in the amended budget or something? Is that how you're envisioning that happening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we'll move as quick as we can. We'll budget appropriately as we're moving through that process.
Right.
Okay. I've got a lot of questions, and I'm trying to figure out where to start. Let me start from going back to maybe what Chairman Irwin, some of the stuff you were talking about. So right now we're doing assessments in 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade. I know you mentioned that the majority of our 3rd graders are not reading at grade level. I think that it's around 30% are. Is that in the ballpark, 35%?
It depends on what test and metrics you're looking at there, but let's just say a majority is a good number I like to go by.
Okay.
A majority of our kids are not on grade level when we're testing in 3rd.
And then when we test in 5th and 8th grade, are we testing them again for reading proficiency? In other words, are we able to track and see how they're catching up by the time they get
We
to
do.
8th grade?
We do.
What's our number for 8th grade? Is it similar, where it's less than half?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's not less than half. The answer is that it grows as the context gets more difficult to accomplish. So as you go up grade levels, if you're off grade level in 3rd grade, that's a very good predictor that those kids are going to be off in 5th grade and 8th grade. And then you've got some that have not grown within there too.
So our majority that cannot read on the 3rd grade level becomes a greater majority by the 8th grade level.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And you're essentially implementing a 1st grade screening process in this bill where we're adding basically we're testing kids at the 1st grade level to see where they're at with new standards of essentially seeing where they're at in the first
We're
grade
doing
to
a
try to
readiness
catch it.
test, yes.
Yeah. Can you just unpack that a little bit? What does that look like? And then what do we do with those students that we find are behind in the first grade? Are those the ones that we get extra attention, or what's the process for those that we already recognize are behind?
Okay, that's where
first
the
grade?
unified literacy plans come in. That's also when, as we are dealing with that child, setting up a literacy plan for that child in first grade. We also put measures in here for promotion and retention of those children so that we have the ability, which, you know, to hold them back and get them caught up with their grade level and their reading levels. So it's basically developing an individual plan for that child once we determine that through the screeners and through the readiness tests that they're not on grade level.
Great. I think that's a great idea. Is that something that Mississippi was doing as well?
Correct.
Okay. I know a lot of what y'all are doing here is modeled after Mississippi. I don't know what is and what
And
isn't,
other
but-
southern states that we have studied as well as visited, like Alabama.
Great. Did you want to add to that? Okay.
That's it.
Gotcha. Walk me through the kindergarten thing. I know that you're, I think maybe at some point there was compulsory 5-year-old kindergarten, but now it's kind of a recommendation. Is that accurate? And then is there a six-year-old component as well?
Well, we didn't change the age by which is compulsory attendance, so it stayed 6. But we're going to funnel all students that have not been to kindergarten through kindergarten with the ability to take a readiness test if they came in at 6 years old to be promoted up to first grade. But we know that base year of kindergarten is so valuable, so skipping it in some students' cases is not a good thing. Mm-hmm. So the bill sets up a mechanism by which to put all those students in kindergarten that have not attended kindergarten and then work them up, which is very important for getting to know the kid, understanding where they're at, and then getting them on grade level, ready for the first grade placement test.
Gotcha. Okay. You got, yeah, go ahead. Chairman Still.
Pass the ball. Got a few questions too. Thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all in the audience for being here. It's really great that so many people care about this bill and all the work that y'all put into it. So thank you. I've got a few questions. I'm just going to bounce around a little bit. So I guess just kind of starting to something you said, Chairman Dubnik, about where the literacy coaches are going to come from. You had said in some cases we'll pull from existing schools, classrooms. How does that impact? We're already dealing with the teacher shortage, and if we're pulling out of classrooms, how is that going to impact our already teacher shortage of where we are?
Well, I think good news there for a couple of points. One, our higher education system is, as Chairman Hickman was just describing, we're putting out qualified and ready to go folks that can come into the classroom and assist there. This General Assembly through the past few years has also enabled some of our retired teachers to come back and assist. I would hope that there would be intrigue and interest in some of those strong folks who have been passionate about literacy, who maybe left the classroom, who decide to come back. So I think if you couple those things together, those are strong places that we could prospectively start. I would also hope, again, a little bit of a personal opinion here and input is that we may have some who have left the classroom to maybe take an administrative position for whatever reason, who might look and say, you know, this is an opportunity again for me to pursue that passion and go back into the classroom. I think when you marry some of those things together, right, that's an exciting place that we could prospectively be, and where people are wanting to take on this role, to take on this responsibility, and that, to Chairman Irwin's point, share that vision that we all have for what could be X number of years down the road and how they could play a part in that.
Thank
Senator
you.
Still, could I add to that
Sure.
question? I don't look at these coaches as pulling them out of the classroom. We're spreading them out in other classrooms. So their ability to work with kids is going to get greater. Their class size has gotten larger is really what's happening. So they are going to be able to go in and coach multiple classrooms of kids So that knowledge just isn't a drain and gone. It's right there, still there, and you would be backfilling and helping, most likely with a beginning teacher, a younger teacher, but that teacher is going to be standing right by at the side now. So I don't look at it as we're pulling them out of the classroom. The whole vision of this is we're in the classroom. This work has to take place where the students are.
Thank you. I appreciate that explanation. When you were initially going through, I wrote down the number about, give or take, 1,300 or so coaches. We've got 1,852 public elementary schools. So that gives us a shortfall of about 500 schools. Is that 500 schools that were already reading above level, or are we going to eventually get to 1,852? Or
no, what we did was in the bill we wrote, if you have any of the grades K to 3 within that school, you get a coach. So there's only 1,300 and something elementary schools that have the grades K, 1, 2, or 3 in it. Some of them are 3 through 5. A true elementary school, by the way we define elementary, 3 through 5, but they still get a coach. But if they're 4 and 5 or an academy of just 5th grade, they do not.
Okay. Going to, and I was just kind of writing this out as you were presenting, line 65 in the bill talks about English as a second language. The largest school district in America is Gwinnett County. I represent a large portion of Gwinnett, as well as Fulton and Forsyth. So the 1st, 4th, and 5th largest school districts in the state of Georgia all touch my footprint. And ESL kids are making up the majority of kids entering kindergarten in Gwinnett, and in large portions of North Fulton as well. Can you speak to how the teachers are going to have to change their focus on the ESL kids compared to those that are just maybe English is their only language at home, but trying to learn that as well?
First of all, we have an ESOL endorsement, Senator, and we give those to teachers. However, this is the preparation that we have within the bill, trying to put the tools in the hand of the teacher so she understands that how to work with children that are ESOL status within their school. So the training not only coming from the coaches, but will be delivered to the teachers to deal with those students, as well as all the others in this line starting in 60 that you see there, whether it's some special needs that they are recognizing how to use the screeners, those type of training.
Got it. Let's jump to lines 194 through 209, if we could. Talks about the importance of determining whether or not the child is ready for placement to 1st grade. Is each school district going to have some determination on that, or will this really be focused on the statewide program will be implemented through that? And how does that look to you if a kid is passed over once or twice because they're not there, likely because of an ESOL situation would be my guess in most cases?
I don't know if I understand the question, Senator. Passed over.
It says, I'll just read 204, that the child is not ready for placement in or promotion to the 1st grade program, that the principal or the principal's designee will notify the parent of that. So who's going to create the rules and the curriculum? We're going to have a statewide curriculum. And you say we're going to have an ESOL special designation. I guess what I'm worried about is there a chance that kids are going to be held back because they're not reading on level, because English is not spoken at home? I'm trying to look out for those immigrant children that are taking up the majority of the classrooms coming into, our largest school system. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything there, that we're going to have 7 and 8-year-olds in first grade or held back in kindergarten because they can't get a mastery in reading. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of a problem in search of an answer here, but it is very real. And I've been in many classrooms in Gwinnett County where the majority of the students in those kindergarten classrooms don't understand a word that the teacher is saying, and so it takes them a while to get up to speed just to be conversational, let alone reading.
And first of all, let me state, in what I mentioned about the unified literacy plan that the school's going to develop is going to be able to take care of catching those type of kids you're talking about within the school. That's why each individual school is developing that plan themselves. Because all schools have different types of students in them that they need to address within their plan. And then the same thing with their teachers, so that the training is attained by the teachers to get to the level to catch those type of kids, to get them on grade level. So within this, you've got a system by which we are educating the teachers that are coming out. Then we are individually looking at the schools and then trying to deal with those individual students all the way down to that one classroom as well as the whole classroom in a unified literacy plan that I think would catch this, and those kids wouldn't just be passed over or passed up and moved on.
Okay.
And the professional learning and the material, the high quality instructional materials that we're talking about play into that, to have them, those teachers and those coaches, to both be prepared and ready to assist and enable that to move forward.
In schools where we have a lower reading level, if we're kind of averaging 1 per school, but we have a lot of schools that have an incredibly high degree of success, how then do we shift resources to the schools with the greatest need, where they might need multiple reading coaches, whereas other schools may not need one?
How do we shift as a state?
Or how do we legislate that to give them the flexibility to do so?
Currently, you get an allotment sheet, and currently in this plan, we put it in QBE that you're going to qualify for this coach to come to your school, and then we're going to pay for the HQIM, instructional material. So we're going to give it to the school. If they need tools that are above and beyond what we're providing, that's where local funds can play in. If they see something that they want, and systems do this regularly today, some more so than others, but they purchase what they think they need for the child, and that flexibility is not gone, Senator. They're still going to be able to do that.
Okay.
But with us paying for that HQIM within this bill, and part of our budget that we've presented here is, I think, critical for not only the students to get that quality material in front of them, but for the teachers to have it in their hand for sure, not waiting on the local system to pay for it.
Okay. That's all I have for now, Shirley.
So on the QBs, I've got a couple elementary questions, no pun intended. On the QBE side, are we covering the full freight at the state level of the expense, or is there any local funding in terms of the funding the coaches?
No,
Go ahead, I'll finish up.
we're fully funded just like we do any other teacher,
Okay.
any other instructor that comes to you. Now, there is a system cost, an employer cost. There's what I call the FICA end. As
Yep.
you know, there's the retirement, those type of costs whenever you add an employee.
So other than the fringe, the only thing they need to pick up is the fringe on that front. So for our local districts that may be feeling like, and I'm not saying I've heard this, but I'm just trying to assuage any concerns of some sort of unfunded mandate, because we get accused of a lot of that down here. This is I'll call it a fully funded. Well, let's not call it a mandate. We'll call it a partnership. How about that? It's a fully funded partnership with our locals to get these kids reading.
And the answer is yes, and so we fully fund this and that coach, and even if there is those other costs we just mentioned that are a small percent, let's talk about return on investment. you do a lot of things because your kids aren't reading on grade level. So if this teacher catches or this coach catches those, and you don't have to do the summer remediation and different programs to catch them up and spend that money on it, then it makes much more money than it would costing to pay the fringe for the teacher.
For what y'all have seen in Alabama, or I'm not sure, sorry, I think it's Alabama and Missouri are the two states that have done a lot of this. How is the coach spending their time as it relates to kind of helping the teachers be better teachers versus sitting down with the kid and helping that particular individual kid or groups of children learn how to read?
Great
what
question, Chairman. What we envision and what we've seen is 70% of the time sitting in the classroom as the coach, working directly with the children, either modeling or helping the teacher and cueing the teacher, assisting the teacher be successful with that individual student. So they were going in there as what I would say a tremendous help to a teacher, coach coming in. If I was a teacher and I had a struggling student, I'm going to ask for every piece of, first responder, get in here and help me with this child. And that's what we envisioned. That's what we saw in Mississippi. That's what we're seeing in Alabama. And it's got tremendous gains in both those two states, we said. And that's why we wrote in the bill that we wanted 70% of their time to be in the classroom.
That's great.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yeah,
could,
please.
just to that, one of the things that we heard from our friends in Alabama was, to no fault of the teacher who was there delivering the ability to teach that child to read, they may not have had a sufficient amount of training to be in that position to help that individual child who may be struggling in a different or deeper way than the rest of the classroom, or in the, Chairman Steele, the analogy that you gave as well. And so one of the things that we heard and saw from them is this is a partner who is coming alongside them inside with the ability to be inside the classroom to assist and aid and help them figure out the needs of that particular child. So to Chairman Earle's point, it's not let's do this for most of the students in the room. No child shall be left behind type approach.
Great. Can y'all talk to me? I was writing down, Representative Dumick, you was going through your numbers. You have the Reading Center, and I remember reading in the bill, there's the current Deal Center, and I think there's some interplay currently there. Help me understand the current structure and then what the new structure will be once that center is built.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My understanding of the Deal Center and their involvement of literacy as a whole is focused in large part on research and helping us with numbers and the state of affairs, if that's a fair statement, where when we look at this money, this is all about creating that professional learning set of resources and environment. I use a lot of bad analogies. I hope my wife is watching somewhere and rolls her eyes at me for that. I look at this approach, Mr. Chairman, as, there are gifted human beings who can we refer to them as athletes, but a generic athlete is not prepared to step onto a court or a field in the way that our professional athletes do, where they have long tenured professional coaches, specific position coaches, nutrition coaches, mental coaches. You've heard about all these things, strength and conditioning coaches, footwork coaches. I really look at this, professional learning is the same analogy as we are going to create those resources in that environment from a professional learning standard so that we can better educate, and no pun intended, and assist those teachers.
What's the conventional wisdom as to where we're falling short? I've got our we've got 4 kids. Our third's in 3rd grade, so she'll be tested this year. The other one's right behind her. And I don't know where they're at, but I do know that we're working on them at home. And obviously the teachers are working on them in school. How much of this, in y'all's perspective, is tied to COVID and kids learning how to read like this for a period of a couple of years, which is difficult? How much of it is us getting away from phonics and now returning to phonics? How much of it is we need to kind of change the way we're teaching teachers how to teach reading, and how much of it is kids coming in and the expectation being, well, I'm just going to hand them off at the school and I'm not going to do anything at home. And I'm curious if, as you guys have dove into this, because it sounds like we're trying to solve a problem that's in the classroom, and I think that has to be then where we've seen some of the challenge. And so with the center and with the other stuff you're talking about, is it that the higher education systems around America just haven't been teaching teachers the right approach in the classroom, and it's kind of this return to science of reading that you think is key? I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm just trying to figure out, as Chairman Irwin talked about, 10 years from now, do we need these coaches? Or is the idea that 10 years from now we've equipped the people in the classroom to kind of be able to do this and we don't need the coaches? And it's a broad question, but I'm just kind of looking for y'all to opine, as I know you guys have dove into this a lot.
I would love to see where we don't need coaches in the classroom. That would be a great thing for our students, to be truthful to you. Remember, teaching reading is a very difficult skill. We think it's very easy, and matter of fact, what you're probably doing when you're reading today, you do it without even thinking about how you learned how to do it, and it becomes natural to you. But when you're 3, 4, 5 years old, it is not natural. That's why I think we have to start, and we wrote that in this bill, let's don't forget the 0 to 5. I want to point out that your children that aren't in school yet are still our citizens, our students, our kids. They don't suddenly become that at 5 years old. So we've got to start teaching parents what it takes to get their kids ready to read when they approach the door of the school. And it's our job to do that. This bill does that. Starts working 0 to 5 with the children. And that is starting with the moms and dads, giving them a book, reading to their children at night, those type of things that expands their vocabulary, because we know the importance. I will also tell you, Senator, that we've got a lot of technology that has changed. We know about the science of reading, and you've seen that throughout this bill. That is helping our teachers today with the training, and the systems, states around us are using that science of reading. There are screeners that we're able to screen kids with. A lot of people don't understand what a screener is, and they think it's a person that we employ. They don't understand that it's a technology tool that we put in the hands of our teachers. And it tells us a lot about that child. They also have the ability to determine if the child is dyslexic or has those tendencies. We know those children read different and learn to read different than somebody who is not dyslexic. So the more educated we get in all of these parts, will make it one day, I hope, where coaches don't have to be in the classroom, but that's not today.
And Chairman, if I could, to that point about dyslexia as an example, we know that if we can, not going to use the phrase diagnose, but if we can catch a child who has dyslexic tendencies in first grade versus third grade, research shows that our cost savings for educating that child are 6 to 8x less. I would argue and put forth that if we were to try to look at that from a, can we diagnose that this child is having a challenge reading and we can help with their literacy initiatives, the return on investment has to be similar. But Chairman Irwin is tired of hearing me use this, but my ROI is a different 3 letters, same 3 letters, 3 different words. It's that risk of ignoring. And this is one of those problems that I believe wholeheartedly and fundamentally that if we ignore, shame on us first, but we're going to have to understand what that total cost is going to be in helping that child and educating that child and ultimately remediating for that child. And I won't even start on Department of Corrections and Department of Juvenile Justice and the numbers that I have there. Happy to get into them later should you so choose, but they're staggering and they're saddening.
Walk me through the current council and the new task force and kind of the interplay between those. Because y'all form, I think it says that I guess it's an 11-person council or task force in the bill. There's the existing one. I see Scott back there. I think that are y'all 30 folks. What's the interplay between those two? What's the purpose of the new one versus the old one? Does the old one go away at all, or is it?
No,
Okay.
it's even written in the bill. The current experts we've got working are in the bill. The task force is a group of experts making what I'll call expert decisions on the HQIM, the screeners, passing all that up, that the information by which how we're doing the using the unified literacy plans, how they're best written. These type of ideas are coming from them, and then you've got similar information coming out of the current literacy council that we have, and the two are going to work as a team to try to send the best information up so that ultimately the director and the coordinator can make the best decisions and then of course recommend to the DOE. Both of them have recommendation powers to the DOE for HQIM, that type of stuff. We didn't look at it as that we need to have just one. We looked at it as we needed a bigger, more defined expert team that was there in the unified or in the task force.
Okay. Do you have questions, Senator Steele? And Senator Anderson, you're joining us. If you want to jump in, you're more than welcome. I know you're not on the subcommittee, but if you got any questions, let us know.
Thank you, Chairman. Coming back to the beginning part of the financial part of the presentation, Chairman Dubnik, we had talked about the startup costs are going to be around $60 million. This likely will increase over time. Do we have a long-term projection of what year 3, 5, 10 will look like if we're going to start at 60?
I think, Mr. Chairman, to that point, again, going back to one of the things that I referenced earlier, until we begin hiring these coaches and understanding where their salary and benefits, training and experience, we'll put them. No, not necessarily do we have a particular number in mind of, gee, if we could just have, 50 million, 150 million, whatever that number is. I think that's a number that we're going to get to and we will build to. But again, just with the teacher piece, right, until we, say that properly. The coach piece, until those are hired and we understand where that individual's salary and T&E are, we don't have that specific number. But again, my argument all along unashamedly has been, I'm not sure that there is a number that any of us can say is too little or too much. It goes back to the question that you asked. Can these coaches work themselves out of a job? Is it not all of our hope that would be the case? It is. Sure. It is for me, when we could look and say there's a day where there's a plan in place and there's students succeeding and these coaches aren't needed. But until then, I'm a personal believer, and I know that some of my peers behind me also believe that until that day comes, we have to be willing to get us to that day.
Sure. If I could, reference you back to the bill, lines 144 through 148. Kind of touches on this concept of academically redshirting kids, holding them back for a little bit. But then in other parts of the bill, it talks about, by certain ages, they shall be enrolled. And again, referencing this back to some of our larger counties, how do you speak to that? How do we make sure that kids aren't starting too late in kindergarten, but also we're bringing the parents into that conversation to have an equal voice on making the best decision for their child?
Well, within the bill, and I would not need to look the line up for you, the parent is part of that determination and promotion retention. So a child that is struggling in school right off the bat is brought into that, the parent is brought in that decision. And ultimately, if the child comes in, hasn't been to kindergarten, and wants in first grade, and we're doing a readiness test, there's a team to determine in a process in here by which they are placed into first grade, and the parent is part of that team along with the teacher.
Well, and that was going to be my follow-up. So what you're referencing is on pages 26 and 27 in the bill, and it talks about this, principal, teacher, parent review team. In that situation, the parent is outnumbered 2-1. If they feel like their child needs to advance, but the principal or their designee and the teacher feel they shouldn't, the parent doesn't have an equal voice in that. How do we make sure that they have an equal opportunity to be heard, or that they can at least have a fair shot at promoting their child, even if for whatever reason the principal, their designee, and the teacher don't think they should?
There's an appeal process within the bill for the parent to appeal the decision of the team.
Okay.
And so then the whole appeal process is then followed for that child and for best determination.
Gotcha. Mr. Walker, did you write this bill? Have the calluses worn off your finger for how many words you had to put in this? Thank you, Chairman Irwin. That was a nod to you. That was meant to be a bit of a compliment. It's a fabulous bill. Just trying to get through it.
Can you all tell me one more time so you got the coaches in the classroom. What layers are above them? Does the coach report to the principal? I think there's some regional play still in here. Somebody tried to map all this out. I'm just trying to understand. So you're going to hire the 13 coaches, and you got the 118 RISA coaches right now, but those get rolled into 13, right? Who else is there besides the person at the top, the director of literacy, the task force, besides the 13 coaches? What's the other?
Wait, Senator, I do not, let me start at the top and work down rather than bottom work up. But let me state to you that the school-based coaches, that's the one we're sending to the elementary school as a coach, is employed by the system. They're hired and evaluated by the principal in the school system. So that 1,300 plus you're talking about are school-based. That's all.
Just like all the other teachers that are there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, if we start at the top then, and you got a director, then you've got a coordinator that is overseeing this entire mission and effort. Then below that, we step to the RISA level, which is where we're currently at with the regional literacy coaches. That's the biggest block of that 118 we were talking about. And they will go out and be working with the coaches. From the RISAs, they will go and instruct, make sure the training's happening, and the coaches understand what they're supposed to be coaching and how they're coaching at the school-based. Then you'll have one other group of that 118, 16 of them that are the leadership. We found out by going to other states that it's very important for the principal at the elementary schools to have the understanding of what teaching of reading looks like, the science of reading. So they are there to make sure the teachers are in the classroom, or the principals are in the classroom with those teachers and those children, as well as giving them the instruction. And we're calling those the leadership literacy coaches. There's 16 of them. There will only be one at every RISA. And they will travel around to the elementary schools working with all the principals within their RISA with their literacy efforts.
Great. Thank you. That's super helpful. Thank you for explaining that. Senator Still, I'm kind of getting to the end of my questions here, and we'll take testimony.
I forgot to start the entire meeting by saying I'm so sorry about Miss Shirley. How's she doing?
Have some prayers. We ask you for that. I'll leave here to go to the hospital, so please have some prayers for her. That's my admin, everyone. So she's in God's hands.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. Please give her our very best. And thank you for continuing to be here, knowing that she is hopefully in more capable medical hands than obviously the Senate is on understanding literacy. So we appreciate that. No, that was all. I just want to say thank you and conclude on that for Ms. Shirley.
Thanks.
Senator Anderson, did you have anything to?
It is, certainly appreciate the deep dive you guys have done on this, and thank you for bringing this bill to us, for working through the off session. I know this has been something that's been a passion. I see the First Lady of the House sitting there behind you, and I don't know if she's going to come testify, but Ms. Dale, I know you've done a lot of work on this as well, and this is a passion project of yours. And as the dad of 2 current elementary school teachers that we're trying to get up to grade level on reading, I'm certainly grateful for that. The only thing that I'm wondering, guys, in this, and help me, and this may just be a different bill, is there anything we need to be doing at the higher education level to kind of get upstream a little bit here? So as these, 22, 23-year-old, 24-year-old teachers are coming in the classroom, that they're fully equipped. Is there anything that we can look at doing later that y'all have identified, or I know this is the first step, probably of a few steps. What are your thoughts on?
You
that.
said it earlier, Senator, and you have to slow down to get it right. We have to make sure that we're teaching teachers to teach kids how to read, and I do believe that exists in that next generation of learners. And so I very much believe, and I know Chairman Irwin does as well, that our USG partners ultimately play a pivotal and key role, crucial role in how this gets executed and what happens. And again, I think we can show our new teachers that there is professional learning, that there is that kind of unified literacy plan, that there are high quality instructional materials out there. There are specific centers created to help them with all those things so that they get to see what comes once they get into the classroom, and it's not, we're going to put you on an island. But I do think that there is also a piece, pun intended again, in their higher ed classroom space where they are being taught based on the science of reading. And so I do think there will be further initiatives, but I do believe this bill and this idea contemplates a number of those things.
Yeah, this gets the help where it's needed right away, and I think maybe
Chairman
we
Irwin
get
can speak
upstream
to
of
that.
that. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
We call them the EPPs, Educational Preparation Programs, and I'll give Senator Hickman
That bill she was talking about earlier.
That one she's had in rules 3 times.
Hey, look, we're teeing this up kind of nice,
Senator Hickman's done a fabulous job of studying our retention and promotion and recruitment of teachers, and has got some very good bills working right now. But I also want to give credit to our PSC director, Dr. Barrow, and what he has done to try to dive into this effort for literacy with us right away, and what their organization, which is right across the street here, does for this state. You will see parts of this bill where they're written in, and they're evaluating those programs on a more aggressive 4-year timeline rather than, I believe, a 7-year timeline, so those programs can improve. So there's a lot of effort going within here for the EPPs, as well as, I don't know if Dr. Barrow is in the room. I do not see him, but he has been very engaged at trying to get this right so our teachers can come out, hit the ground running with literacy. And that is all teachers, because as I stated, reading is fundamental to every subject. So teachers in every subject need to recognize it in what they can do and get the kid on grade level with reading.
The way that I've heard it described by somebody a lot smarter than me is that somewhere around 3rd to 4th grade, you have to make the transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And that if you miss that gap, then you aren't going to do the rest of the learning that you're talking about. As a last follow-up, is there anything that y'all have heard about from GOSA or DOE that anybody's got heartburn about, that has been any friction point anywhere, or is everyone kind of in a good spot on this from the way y'all work through it?
I think the callus is on Mr. Walker's hands, as you mentioned, and fingertips.
Okay. He's been through some.
I just want to take this chance, Mr. Chairman, if I could, just to commend Chairman Irwin for his vision of seeing this. And I've never met someone who embodied the idea of an open door. And I say that just to your point. I think that anyone who has had a concern or a question to this point has come to us, and all jokes aside, I feel
Or
like
Michael,
yeah. Gentleman to my right has spent a lot of time making a lot of edits, and so if there are those out there that still have concerns, I sure wish they'd come out of the shadows and come see us.
Great. Well, we're about to find out, I think. We'll take some public testimony, and
Yeah.
why don't you all grab a seat, and if anybody would like to come testify, Ms. Burns, would you like to offer any comments?
No, I think I'm good,
Okay.
but thank you for offering.
You're welcome. And if you, at any point in time you want to, the microphone will be available. I did see Richard Woods, I think, came in the room. Is our state superintendent still here? I don't know if you wanted to opine at all.
Again, I just appreciate the efforts again, as we all know.
Why don't you come to the microphone, because we are streaming this. And yeah, sounds good.
Again, I do just want to iterate, Mr. Chairman, again to all members of the committee, definitely literacy is the number one factor for success for education. We are committed to make sure that this becomes a reality. One of the things we have looked at is that we now have new standards this year. Again, a lot of things that we have talked about with the science of reading, phonics, they're incorporated. We've gotten rid of the old Common Core standards, which did not support this. So we're very pleased with that. We have seen great growth for our coaches that we put in the lowest 5%, and again we do support having the coaches, as Chairman Irwin has shared with that. We do think that is imperative for success in having them at the school level, and we look forward to working both with the House and the Senate to make this a reality. Again, this is the future of Georgia. Whether it's our workforce, whether it's the future of education, supporting our teachers, we want to make sure that we give every child a smooth runway in which they can take off and soar to anywhere they want to go. But we look forward to continuing that dialogue in the days to come.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody that wants to come testify, just catch my eye, raise your hand, and when you do come forward, please say who you are and who you're with, and you can share your thoughts on the bill. Thanks.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Thank you for your time. And first, I want to say I'm here. I'm Kenneth Dyer. I'm superintendent of the Dougherty County School System in Albany, Georgia, and I'm here to voice my strong support for House Bill 1193. But I do want to respectfully recommend one consideration of one critical addition, and that is a targeted poverty weight aligned to literacy outcomes. Because quite simply, literacy is the foundation, but poverty too often becomes a barrier for our students. And I don't think we can afford to prolong addressing poverty and its effects much longer.
What would that look like in your mind? If we're going to do one per school, how would you want to see a poverty weight effectuated?
Yes, sir, I'm glad you asked. If you give me 3 minutes, I can go through my
Sure.
presentation.
I'll give you 3, and then
Okay.
we'll see where we're at.
All right, yes, sir. Poverty is one of the strongest predictors of student achievement. And according to the Governor's Office of Student Achievement, it probably increases literacy outcomes. As poverty increases, literacy outcomes decline. And you'll see a significant drop in literacy proficiency, the higher poverty rate goes up. And I'm going to go quickly. If you look at the document I gave you, and I have other copies for your staff, if you look at page 1, it's a splatter plot in the bottom right-hand corner, and that shows the correlation between high direct search students, which are students whose families get government assistance, who that's how poverty is defined in our legislature, and you'll see the higher the direct search, the lower the proficiency at ELA in 3rd grade. That's compelling data. And then you look at, again, on the second page, you'll see another table, again, through the Governor's Office of Student Achievement on their website, that shows, the bottom line shows the ELA proficiency level at 3rd grade for schools with high direct search, and the top line shows the proficiency of schools with low direct certs. You'll see that the bottom line, schools with high direct certs, their English language proficiency is under 15% consistently, and that's over an 8-year period. Whereas schools with low direct certs and low poverty, they're approaching 70%. So we're talking about over a 50% gap, a 50 percentage point gap between students in poverty and students who are not in poverty. It's clear. And another item I want to bring up that's not directly related to this, but with the Promise Scholarship Act, 87% of the schools on that list last year who were in the bottom 25% of performance, 87% of those schools had a student population where at least 50% of those students came from families that received government assistance. And so there's a direct correlation, negative correlation between poverty and student achievement, but it doesn't have to be. If you look on page 3, I'll show you some data that we did in the Dougherty County school system. We've written over $50 million and received $50 million in grants since my time as superintendent. A lot of it targeted to a wraparound support for students in poverty, because our poverty rate, our direct cert rate is over 2/3. Over 2/3 of our students come from families that receive government assistance. And we took 3 of our lowest performing schools with our highest direct cert percentages, and over 4 years, from 2022 to 2025, you'll see the increase in literacy in that bottom table. The blue is 2022, the red is 2023, the gold is 2024, and the green is 2025. And that's a dramatic increase.
What'd you do with the grant? What'd you use the grant money for?
We use grant money for providing after-school support for students, providing training, providing additional funding for literacy coaches, providing wraparound supports in our schools, because a lot of things that we take for granted, students in poverty do not take for granted. And our mission of the Dougherty County school system is to meet the academic and non-academic needs of our students, to provide them with a rigorous and relevant educational experience to equip them to succeed in life.
So in these 3 schools that you have here, Alice Coachman, Robert Harvey, and Turner,
yes.
How many literacy coaches did you have in those schools?
We have 1 each. We provided literacy coaches and math coaches in each of those schools.
Those are 2 separate people?
Yes.
Okay. So with the introduction of the literacy coach, as well as everything you talked about, all 3 of these schools went from under 20 or right at 20% students reading at grade level to above 40% in all of those schools.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We had 32.
So it would seem we're on the right track with this bill then, right?
I agree. I say I'm in strong support of it. I
So-
think we have a missing piece.
So since we're at 4 minutes, what do you, yeah. Are you essentially lobbying for some of these schools to get 2 coaches?
No, what I'm lobbying for, what I'm advocating for is to provide a funding weight. There's a bill introduced in the Senate.
Yeah, but we're just providing people, so this isn't really we're not sending money. So you're asking for more money?
I'm asking for a poverty weight. The national average, Georgia is one of 6 states, I know you heard that before, in the country that doesn't provide a weight for poverty in its funding form.
You're just saying more broadly.
Right.
Take this bill away from it. You're asking for.
No, I'm saying, so I think we can add in this bill a poverty weight.
As it relates to the coaches?
As it relates to funding for schools who have high percentages of direct cert.
I see.
I know the Senate bill and the House bill looked at all students, and what I read, that could approach $600 million, which I think is it could be considered a bit much. What I'm proposing is using the eligibility criteria of the pilot that was introduced last year that wasn't funded, taking schools systems with 40% or more students in direct cert and providing additional weight for funding. Last year, the pilot was $15 million. It provided 5% above base funding. The national average is 22% above base funding. Okay,
I see. Yeah. I'm going to go to Senator Still for a question, then we'll move on to the next person. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. This is very helpful. Going to page 3 on your bar graph.
Yes.
And we're comparing those 3 schools. Mm-hmm. How many total elementary schools do you have in Dougherty County?
We have 13.
You have 13.
Yes.
How did and these 3 had coaches?
Yes.
How did the ones that did not have a literacy coach compare to these 3?
Well, to make sure I clarify something. These schools not only had coaches, we provided additional funding for after school, for wraparound supports, and we could not afford to do that with of all our 13 schools. We took these 3 schools because they were perennially at the bottom tier of the Dougherty County school system performance. So not only were there literacy coaches involved, but also additional funding for other wraparound supports and academic supports. So of our 13, these are the 3 that had all of those additional supports, including literacy coaches.
Okay, let me ask a question a different way.
Yes, sir.
I've long been an advocate that the Summer and Winter Olympic Games should always just have a random dude. Throw me in there that doesn't know how to do anything.
Right,
put me in the long jump, put me in the shot put, and see how I do compared to these super tier athletes.
Yes, sir.
How does the school in your system that started it, that had the same benchmark 4 years ago in 22, for contrast, just for comparison, you've supercharged these 3 schools, and you left 10 schools out of it deliberately. So for contrast, your other 10 schools that had the same starting point as these 3, how did their performance change in compared to these?
I don't have a specific numbers, but I can tell you they were not close to this performance. And I can pull that data for you. But the reason I highlighted these 3 schools is because these 3 schools are the schools that we provided those extra resources. And so I want to show what could happen if we provided additional resources for schools with a high concentration of students in poverty and the results that we could get from that. And just as a snapshot, if you go to page 8, I can show you in one graph 4 sets of tables.
I'm going to go ahead and, because I'll go to Senator Anderson, and then I would just say more broadly, I appreciate what you're doing. I think we're a little bit off topic.
Really?
Just because I don't necessarily think we're going in that direction here. So I don't want to belabor, spend too much time on this. Senator Anderson, what's your number there? I can't.
I can talk about it. I'm on 10 and I'm on 10.
I'll put you on
10's
10.
good.
Oh, 10.
So how did the, in comparison, just looking at it, how would you guesstimate the difference in the schools that you didn't send the coaches to how much these students improved? What was the gap there? Like,
It was more than double.
Okay.
And I want to show this, and I appreciate the respect the chairman's comments about let's get in the topic, and I don't want to get us off topic, but I want to go to that last table on page 8, and that specifically looks at the student reading at or above grade level over that 4-year period, and you'll see that Alex Coachman went up 32.27 points, Robert Harvey 32.32 points, and Turner Elementary School 48.95 points. So the additional funding does impact literacy, and literacy impacts, as Chairman Irvin said, it permeates all subjects, because once you learn to read, you can read to learn in every content area. And if you look at the other 3 areas above that last table, you'll see that we had a significant increase in science, in math, in ELA, and overall content growth. But the foundation of that, we believe, is that bottom table. That's why it's at the bottom, because they did a better job in literacy, and they were able to improve in every other content area. And I think that if we provided funding in the literacy bill to impact literacy for students in poverty, then we'll see tremendous gains across all content areas in addition to literacy.
Was your, sorry, did you have
I'm
another?
good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Were you only able to fund these literacy coaches you had through these grants, or have you somehow rolled them into your overall budget?
General fund, the grant, the literacy coaches, and a lot of the other things we did, we provided through our general fund, through our reserve. We took money from our reserves to do that. But the other things we got from the grants were the after-school tutorials, the school-based health centers, school-based dental center, school-based vision center, other things that we provided for students to include wraparound supports. So those are the things we got from our grants. But and the concern is that we were taking the other funding out of our reserves, and you can't continue to pay normal operating costs out of your reserves. You'll run out sooner or later. And the funding has to be sufficient, it has to be sustainable, and it has to be predictable. And what we did, instead of saying what we thought would work, we wanted to provide evidence that it could work before we came to you with a request. And I certainly think that the information that we provided on a small scale with 3 schools, if we had the resources, we would have done it with all of our 13 elementary schools, and I think you would have seen similar results. But we certainly see the results in these 3 schools. I certainly appreciate the time to bring this to you, and I think the time is now to, if possible, to provide meaningful power to weight toward our funding, and we can have certain criteria to ensure that the funds are used appropriately. And I think I'm sure we'll see similar results from across the state of Georgia, not just in Doherty County.
So
But if you want
I think
to
the
do
good
a pilot in
news.
just Doherty County, I'd be glad to do that too.
So here's, I think, the good news. I don't see the bill going in the direction that you're advocating for directly.
Okay.
However, if this bill passes, all 13 of your schools will have a coach.
All 13 of our schools have a coach right now, sir.
They all have one right
Yes,
now.
sir.
Okay, so you can take all that money from those 13 and you can allocate that towards other purposes, whereas right now you're having to do that to fund the coach. So you win either way.
Yes, sir.
And what I've learned in 8 years down here is sometimes you take a step at a time. So
Yes, sir.
I
certainly
think we're moving in the
appreciate
right
it.
direction.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And again, I really support the bill. I think it's in the right direction. I just think that there's one piece that we could add to it either here, this year, or next year. If we take a study, I think we can certainly see that we can improve our return on investment with the funding that we provide, target at students toward literacy. And I really appreciate your time, Mr. Chairman, and I hope you don't consider it a waste.
I appreciate, this is very helpful. Thank you for putting this packet together. Appreciate you making the drive.
Yes, sir.
It took you a little longer than a half hour to get here. So
Yes, Senator Sims, I shared this with Senator Sims, but I know she's not here for other reasons, and I want to make sure that, because she's a strong advocate for this, I think she co-sponsored the bill in the Senate, the poverty bill. And
she's been a strong advocate of education, and
she has been.
she and her family are in our prayers as well,
Yes,
speaking
and
of
I
people
wanna
that
make
we're
sure
praying
I
for.
present it on her behalf as well. So
All
thank
right.
you very much.
Yep, thank you. We're going to, if you could step up, and why don't you tell us your name and who you're with, and let us know what's on your mind with the bill.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. My name is Jaylene Hunter, and I'm currently the chairman of the Marietta City Schools Board of Education. I also sit on the Georgia Literacy Council, but more importantly, I have 4 children, 3 who had a very difficult time learning to read. And that's what made me so passionate about this, made me run for school board. And as I was sitting in our school district, which is a Title I school district where 64% of our kids live in poverty, we made this a priority in our system, and in 2021, we invested in literacy. And I just want to encourage y'all what difference this can make statewide, because what we did in 2021 is we trained all of our teachers in the science of reading, and additionally, we invested in coaches, okay? So if you look at our scores, if you look at where we were for Georgia milestones from the spring of 2022 until present, for the state of Georgia, it increased 0.1% in growth. For Metro Atlanta, it was a negative 1%. And in Marietta City Schools, we had an 11% growth. And this included all students against all subgroups. And if you want to see those numbers, I can give them to you. But I just want to encourage y'all that this can make a huge difference in the lives of students, and thank you for your work.
Thank you. Did y'all do one coach per school in Marietta City Schools as well?
We actually, and this should encourage you as well, we started off with, it depended on the school. We looked to see who needed what, but we started off with 37 coaches, and because our students are doing so well, and because our teachers have been taught the best way to teach, we each year have been able to whittle that down, and we're down to 25 at the moment.
Across how many schools?
Across 12 schools.
Great. Okay, so you're almost 2 to 1 basically right
Almost,
now.
yes.
Okay.
But that was our choice. That was our investment.
Sure.
So,
Great. Thank you for your
Sure.
testimony. Thanks for being here today. Anyone else like to testify on the bill? Okay, yeah, come on forward, please. Let's do this. If you want to testify, just maybe stand on the side of the room. That way I know how many folks we've got. I think I saw 2 hands go up. Hello.
I'm Beth Haynes, and I am the state leader for Decoding Dyslexia. I want to thank you very much for HB 1193. We're thrilled about the addition of literacy coaches to every classroom. They are the bridge between research and classroom practice, and as research develops, it's essential to have those coaches there to educate teachers on best practices. So sustained and job-embedded coaching is what drives student outcomes. The literacy coaches, I love the idea of everybody doing so well that they coach themselves out of a job. But in reality, if we want best practices for our kids, keeping the literacy coaches there is important. And as far as the HQM goes, I hope that the task force will contain experts who are paying attention to the very latest in research showing that the curriculum has to build knowledge through real context-rich texts. I think you guys alluded to that with talking about the K through 5 preparation and knowing how important vocabulary is. But students need reading, writing, and discourse that's grounded in meaningful content. And then as far as the literacy plans that are developed by districts, unfortunately, even despite the dyslexia laws and the other early literacy laws, we still have students that are struggling greatly in K through 3. So we would ask that, pardon me. So we would ask that districts receive guidance from the state at a higher level, because the implementation so far has not gone as well as it could. And the districts, a lot of them don't have the resources to figure out much of this for themselves. Their screeners are not being employed in the ways that screeners should so far around the state in many, many ways. We're hearing from all corners of the state about kids who are being missed and not identified. So strong guidance from the state is going to be essential for trying to keep this whole thing on the tracks. But we really appreciate everything that you guys have done and look forward to seeing it in practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Chairman, any final thoughts?
Help us ring the bell that if you can't read, we're coming to help.
There you go. All right. No other comments. Thank you all for being here today. Thanks for all those that have worked on this bill. And we will see you all at the next step of the process. We're adjourned. Thank you.